So 19 days into the January transfer window, Newcastle United have conducted what looks like a significant bit of business with Chris Wood heading to Nottingham Forest on an initial loan deal, but there is an obligation to buy, and Nottingham Forest are in a position where they desperately need strikers. They've had injuries and they've turned to Chris Wood, which for Newcastle was probably a transfer they weren't expecting to do when the window opened. When the window opened, Chris Wood was actually on the back of a good Boxing Day performance against Leicester, where he scored the penalty, and he'd had a decent game against Leeds, but I don't think he was expecting to leave. We spoke to him in Saudi Arabia, and the talk from him then was he was 100% committed and he wanted to stay. He wanted to at least be here for another 18 months. But football's a strange game. Sometimes can change very quickly. It certainly turned around very quickly for Chris Wood in the last 12 months. Arrived on a £25 million deal from Burnley, and he was brought in to help Newcastle stay up, which I personally think he did everything that was asked of him. He was never going to be a prolific scorer. If you look at his stats across the career, he's very much a target man, someone who can hold the ball up, someone who can bring others into play. But ultimately, Newcastle have sanctioned this deal. They've obviously got other things in mind that they can do, and Eddie Howe will no doubt have a lot of praise for Chris Wood. But it's going to be seen the rest of the season now at Nottingham Forest. And for the Newcastle fans, I think the majority will have good things to say about Chris Wood. He, as I say, come in last year when Newcastle were in a real relegation tussle, and he did everything that was asked of him. He scored some important goals for the club. Yes, again, hasn't been prolific, but if Newcastle were to go on to win the League Cup, you'll probably look back at that goal against Tranmere away in the early rounds this season as an important one. Scored against Southampton, Leicester, as I've already mentioned, and scored a couple last season. So yeah, Chris Wood will depart with good wishes, but for Newcastle fans, they now look forward to the next phase of the window. There's still 10-11 days to go. Eddie Howe will meet the press tomorrow. I'm sure he'll have plenty to say about that one, and I'm sure he'll have a lot of questions coming his way about transfers as well. That's before we get on to Crystal Palace. So Newcastle's window, I believe, is starting to really hot up now, and it's goodbye Chris Wood for now, and we'll see who comes through the door in the next 10 days.